Hello, Active Sage here on the Sage channel, and a bit of an update came out today that added a few, well, wonderful things. Mainly, if you press G and you scroll down to the bottom, you can see where they've been adding more of the more recent things like cameras and this. They've added a sensor that you can set to detect different things, and, well, let me just show you some of the little things I've built with this. This is a pretty simple setup right here. There's actually two sensors, one behind that wall and one behind that wall, and you can actually change their area of influence, sort of like a gravity generator, but you can actually shift it more precisely. I'll show you that in a bit, but I have one set to toggle the piston to reverse when I'm in the area, and another one set to turn on this set of lights that you see blinking here. And they've also modded lights, so you can now, well, I say modded, they've altered lights so they now can blink. And you see there I came out of that field, and instantly those lights stopped, and I have it set that when you leave the field, the piston reverses again, which is now closing the door. And I can't actually get to it because the field is pretty much only on the outside. Now you might be hearing a click there. That's because, if we were to look up, you can see I have lights coming on as I walk down this hallway, which is pretty dang awesome. And that is done because I have a sensor in behind this wall here for each of these lights. So there's a whole lot of sensors here, and this was done actually modularly because this whole thing is a station. So I set up one set of these, so one sensor and one light, and then I copied and pasted these all together and then merged them all using, you know, taking a block and doing that basically with it, but not that block, just a normal block. And they all merged together, but they still kept their individual commands, which is pretty awesome. So you can have a nice long hallway and have all your lights shutting off, which is pretty cool. It's actually very cool to fly down and see the lights trying to keep up with you as you're going pretty quickly. Now, down at the end of this long hallway here, I have this thing here. This is much the same as the first big door. It is basically two sensors. They're actually below my feet here, and they engulf this whole little room here. And one sensor activates the lights on these. The other sensor activates a rotor all the way at the top, which causes them all to spin, which is pretty awesome. You get these nice lights going around. But of course, if I was to leave this room, it shuts off, which is pretty awesome. They have lights that only work like that. Now this thing here is an experimentation with the fact that you can have those lights blinking. In their blinking light settings, you can actually set up a few other things. So here we go. This is hard to explain, but the best way to explain it is if I put down a control panel right here and access it, what it's doing is this is flashing hull. I made a group for all these lights, and each individual set of lights, because this was made modularly as well, they all have pretty much the same settings, but down here at the bottom, you'll see these new ones. So you have the blink interval, the blink length, and the blink offset. And if you mouse over these, you get a nice little tooltip. Now, the way I set this up is I set them all up with these settings, but I only built 4 of them. So that one, that one, that one, and that one. And just like that original hallway, I copied and pasted these all right next to each other, and that way I could build this huge string of them. But every time I pasted it, I'd go into the settings and alter one of the very important settings that you will have seen there. If I go back to it, it's this setting right here. So basically all I did was up that by 20 every time I went down one. So it ends up setting the offset for the lights, so you get this nice little pattern as if they're going down the hallway, which can be a bit disorienting. I think maybe they would have been a bit better if I could space them out more, or maybe even speed them up a bit, but it's pretty dang cool. I like it a lot. Now let's move on. This one, unlike the others, I don't have it set to turn off, so it just stays on. I'm going to show you what the controls actually look like for setting this up in a minute. Another thing we have is that these can actually detect different things. So right now, all these that you've seen have all been set up to detect the player. Well, this one here down this hallway, and this one here, I actually have it set up to detect small ships, and you can set them up for large ships, floating objects, like if you drop a gun or something. But I think this is pretty awesome because you could use this in, let's say, an adventure map, so you got to go get the key, quote unquote, and this could possibly be the key. So here we go. I bumped this out of the way, and instantly that starts going up because it's no longer detecting, because I have a detector, or yeah, a scanner or whatever below the floor there. It's no longer detecting a small ship in its area, so that instantly retracts a piston all the way up in the ceiling, which is pretty cool, I think. But let's go ahead and grab this, and as you can see, that original hallway I was in, it's actually set up also to detect small ships. So if I was to go ahead and push that down there, you can see as that flies, it sets off all the lights, which is kind of, it's actually a pretty dang cool thing to see it drifting down. Unfortunately, the clicking sound still persists, which is a little bit annoying. Now, let me go ahead and start explaining more of these in this nice little, well, I say little, it's actually kind of large explanation room. And actually, let me go get rid of that thing down there real quick. That way we're not being plagued by the beep. Oh, wait, no, it did stop. Oh, Yep, it did stop all the way at the end, which is actually a pretty cool view. But let me go ahead and delete it, that way it stops floating into things. So let's go ahead and explain some of these. We'll start off with, well, I could start off with a Warhead. They've changed those, but let's not. Let's start off with something super simple. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out with going ahead and building a little bit. So let's go ahead and stick some new stuff in here. So there we go. We've got a super basic thing. Let's take the new sensor block here. We got it down on our hotbar. We're going to place that. And it actually has a top and bottom, which is sort of just important. You can see this word sensor being upside down if I do that. And it sort of looks like a one eye with a face. It's quite funny. But you can see that if you had it upside down, it might be a bit hard to understand the way you're affecting the fields, because if we were to go ahead and press K on that little control panel, you can see it has all these nice little sliders here, which at first might seem bewildering, but think of it this way. You see it's got left, right, bottom, top, back, and front. If we were to go ahead and do an Alt, Shift, F12, that's Alt, Shift, F12, this, long as you're in creative mode, no matter if you're in multiplayer or single player, it's going to bring up collision volume. So that's why everything's got crazy colors. But it also brings up certain area of effect volume. So that's why you can see that there's this huge square here around what we just placed. That's the area that this little sensor can detect things in. And right now it's set to detect players. And you can tell there's that little also green light on the front there, so if I back out of that field, you can see that little green light turns on and off, which is just another little visual something. But let's go ahead and turn that back on. The best way when you're setting up to think about all this is if you were the sensor, and that's its little dinky eye. So imagine you're sitting here with a sensor, so left would be that way. So if let's say we wanted only to detect pretty much the block right here in front of it, to do so we would simply go into it. We'd say, okay, left, we want it pretty much right over here. So we brought that one in. You can see this little line shooting down right here. I know the colors are a bit flashy and annoying when you're in this mode, but it's the only way to really see it. That line there is sort of the dividing point of this little cube here. So we've brought that in. One is about what we want. Maybe we'll up a little bit more. We'll look at this. We'll go back to that. Press K. We're going to do a control left click on this. And it's going to bring up this menu, and we're actually going to set it to 0.12. And since I'm pretty sure that'll be right, I've done a control A and a control C, because that's something else they've added in this update, is the ability to very easily select the text. So control left click on that. I'm doing a control A, select it all, and control V to paste that. So you can now copy and paste letters and words and all that in this. It is extremely helpful for naming stuff. Thank you, devs, if you're watching. Thank you. I'm so happy to have this. Anyway, bottom, well, it's about the same because it's in the middle point of that big block in front of us. So we're going to do exactly the same there. And, oh, I was copying the wrong number, so I'm going to go ahead, go back to that one, grab it, and paste it in there. Top, once again, we're going to want the same. But now for front and back. Well, back, we don't really want to detect anything behind this. We don't need to. So we're going to set that all the way down to that. We probably can't set it to 0. So I'm going to try. And you see there it gives us a little error message for a second. Yeah, it has between 1 and 50. So we'll set that to 1. These are meters, by the way. So it's still going to go back a little bit, but not too much. And then front, well, I believe a block is 2.5 meters long. And it's going pretty much from the start of this block. So let's go ahead and set that in there to... Where'd you go now? Right here to 2.5, confirm, and now if we fly out, you can see this cube is just that one block we had. It's actually very useful. It's great, you know. I love it. It's so simple. I actually hope that maybe they'll set up gravity generators like that in the future. It'll be better than having to half your numbers and sort of figure it out that way. I like this a whole lot. So anyway, there we go. Now you can see the little light. If I turn this on, the little light only comes on when you walk into that. By the way, to turn off that mess of colors and all that, collision volumes and everything, it's Alt-Shift F12 again. That turns it off. If you're in a single player mode, you can do F11 and show collision volumes and all that, but I just find this easier, and it actually works in multiplayer mode, so it's actually a lot of help. And now we could go ahead and tell this to be set up something. So what do we want this to do? Well, let's go ahead and have it set up to toggle... I don't know, let's go ahead and set it up to a light like I've been doing. So here we go, a brand new light, a brand new baby light. We're going to go up to this. We're going to first off go ahead and scroll down until we find our brand new baby light. So it'll be the very last light we added. So brand new baby light. There we go. Stupid name, I know. We'll even give it an underscore light. That way it's a little easier to differentiate from everything else in the world. And we can just search light and it'll show up for sure. And now we're going to go ahead and I exited out and press K again to get back to the specific sensor faster. And now, there we go. We're going to go ahead and tell it to just keep detecting players like it is. But what we want to do is click on this Setup Actions button right here. So we're going to click that. And now here's a billion lights, dear God. Hopefully it's down at the very bottom will be the brand new baby light. There it is. Luckily they're named. Of course, if you group these, they will show up all the way at the top here. So let's go ahead and grab our brand new baby light. And we're going to drag it in here, and you see they've added a new option. Instead of just toggle block on and off, you can have turn block on and turn block off, which will actually be helpful for other things too, like if you have control panels you want to specifically have one button for on and one button for off, maybe for story reasons, you can do it. So let's tell it to toggle block on, and then let's tell it to toggle block off. And what you're going to notice here is the second I do that, it actually works because it's two separate things. In the past, when it was just toggle, you couldn't actually have the same object dragged down there. You'd actually have to make a group to have, if you just wanted it to be toggle every time you walk through. And that might be what you want. So if you wanted to have this light toggle every time you walked in or out, you could basically set it up where you drag it once down from right here to there. You would then go ahead and go back to where we were a minute ago in here. You'd select that brand new baby light, you'd group it, and then you would go back into here, set up actions, and then you just drag the new group down here and tell it to toggle block on and off. That way you'd have the actual just light set the toggle block on and off in slot 1, and then the group and toggle block on and off in slot 2. It's pretty cool. Anyway, let's go ahead and walk out of that. And now you can see our new light toggles on and off as we walk into that. And you could set this up to pretty much anything. As you saw, it's just like when you're in a cockpit setting up controls. It's really, really nice and advanced. Other things they did today, well, one of the most notable is this. You might say, well, that's been in the game for a while. But wait a minute, why are those lights glowing green? That's because now you can go ahead and set a timer all the way up to an hour, which is kind of ridiculous. Or, you know, we could set it up for... well, let's do a control left click on it. Give us 4 seconds here, please. And start countdown. And there you go. You can see in 4 seconds, that'll go out and do some terrible damage to everything around us. You can see it's even blowing a hole into the outside of this place. Of course, you could go ahead and set one of these down. And open this up. And let's say safety's on. So when unchecked, the Warhead can be detonated manually. So basically, if we do this, now you can detonate it manually. So I click this and... kaboom. Pretty cool, pretty awesome. I think that's actually about it. There's tons and tons of possibilities. As I've shown, you can use these sensors to do all sorts of insane stuff. You could technically have a sensor that's just set to turn lights on. Like if I had all these sensors here and I had them only to toggle on, there was no secondary function on all of them. As I rounded into this hallway, all the lights would turn on and they wouldn't turn off behind me. And so you could have a basic exploration level where that happens. All sorts of crazy stuff. As for these toggling flashing, I should probably actually go back and show you a little bit more of these. Let's go ahead and actually make a new thing here, because we don't want to have to be looking through all those screens of different stuff again. Let's give it some power. Let's give it a... well, we don't even need a sensor. All we need really right now is just the light and a control panel to access it. Now, to get the light blinking, super simple. Go into here, find the light you want to blink, scroll down, blink interval, so this is how frequently the light will turn back on. Let's have it so every 1 second it's going to flash on. So, what am I doing? I can just do that, can't I? There we go. So there we go. Every 1 second it'll turn back on. It's only for a half a millisecond basically when it turns on. Now to up that, super simple, go ahead and go down here to blink length, and this is how long of this total length here of 1 second will this be on? So let's go ahead and set it to 50%, shall we? So there we go. So now half of 1 second it'll be on. Pretty cool. And then let's say that's a bit too quick, so we could go ahead and refine this very easily. Let's give it a bit of color so we're not just bored sitting here. There we go. Give it some blink interval. Let's do 2.5, shall we? So 2.5. It's so nice being able to just use Control A and all that. I love that. It speeds things up so much. Blink interval 50%. No, let's drop that now. Let's do like 25%. Because that seems a bit long. So now there we go. Blink. Blink. So that's pretty cool. And then of course, if I wanted to do what I did down in that other hallway, I can copy it over there. You can see they haven't merged because there's still that block in between them. So now I can go ahead and select this one, select that light, and tell it to have a bit of a delay by, let's say, 10%. Oh, nope, not 110%, just 10%. There we go. So now you can see they will blink at slightly different times. And then you can imagine me copying and pasting this a billion times and altering it to basically get what I did before, and then merging them all together, and then copying that huge section to make it even longer. Overall, pretty awesome. This update is really pretty much fantastic for lights and also just for naming stuff. I'm loving the ability to, Control A, Control C to copy names and just move about. It's great. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.